this is In Conversation on KBC English Service, and I'm your host, Kayinga Okwemba. My guest, the Senate Majority Leader and the Senator for West Pokot, Samuel Poghisio, one of our veteran politicians. He's been in Parliament for quite some time, and so he brings quite some experience on issues to do with legislation. And they're just asking him to make some comments about this COVID-19, because we are meeting at a time when we are being confronted by this pandemic that is still ravaging the world, and also his comments on whether or not it is right to get our students back in school, because they have been away for a very long time. Many things that have happened in the political arena. Of course, at that time we were also anticipating that we were going to combat this COVID-19. I think we should start. I want you to make a word and even appeal to Kenyans what they need to do, because recently we've actually been having some very scary, data that Kenyans are still being infected by this COVID-19. Your word as a leader.
The Minister of Health has been very, very active in letting us know that this is a second wave of the COVID-19. It's not the same as the first wave. This one has been more aggressive. I know I've been to places where people just mix freely. They don't wear their masks. They don't keep social distancing. They have allowed everything to chance. I think the most important thing is for us to think about what's happening in the world. This is ravaging the whole world. But we have begun to see big numbers in Kenya. And so you don't know who's sitting next to you or standing next to you. They might be positive, so be careful. Let's follow what we've been told. Sanitize, wash your hands, keep social distancing, wear your mask, and in this case, actually wear the mask correctly. A good number of our people just put the mask below their mouth. Some of them cover only the mouth and not the nose, and yet it's supposed to be the entire, almost the entire face, except for your eyes, so that your nose and your mouth are fully covered. So I think those are some of the things. The other thing, of course, is basically worry about your neighbor, worry about your parents, worry about the elderly. They are the most vulnerable. Yes.
Our students, our young kids have been out of school for a very long time. But recently the Minister of Education did release, the timetable on how these youngsters are supposed to return to classes, and there are those ones who very strongly feel that these students are better and safe in school rather than being at home, and there are those ones who are also feeling that maybe a parent would always want to be very close to their child, especially when you're experiencing a pandemic that is very aggressive, like COVID-19, like we are going through. I don't know, what are your views about this COVID-19 and the way it has interfered with the education system, and even now the government saying that it's confident that we can have these youngsters back in school?
It is actually a universal problem. Many countries have tried opening schools, and some of them have gone right back to shut down the schools because we have a very delicate situation with our children. I think, in my view, if the conditions in the schools can be such that proper sanitation is done, fumigation is done, and the kids wear their masks, and the social distancing happens in classes, the kids are together in school, so the people you worry about are the people who come to cook for them, who go home and back, the teachers as they go back and forth, and everybody else who comes from outside, and you have to worry about that. There must be a strategy wherein the kids are absolutely kept healthy. And I also want to appeal to parents that, if the Minister of Education has decided that they're going to have a new schools reopening, for example, in January, those in school now, unless they're infected, can be properly taken care of in the school. Hopefully there's enough provision for them. And so if we think we are the best keepers of these children, you'll soon realize that actually you can't have them. They say you can't have your cake and eat it. So you can't have the kids at home and want them to complete their primary school or secondary school in time. And so that's the dilemma even the Ministry of Education has, is how do you try and complete the syllabus and the curriculum and at the same time be able to deal with this virus. Some parents, by the way, also say they cannot manage to keep the kids at home forever. Some things have happened when the kids were at home. Some of the kids may not go back to school because some of them, have become parents themselves. Some of them have, changed in many ways. It depends on how the parents took care of them. So I hope that the Ministry of Education and those responsible for our children in schools maintain the highest level of hygiene and keep to the rules and protect our children so that they can get a learning there.
BBI, the Bridging Bridges Initiative. The report was launched officially a few weeks ago by the President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga at the Bomas of Kenya. Kenyans have actually had some discussions going. There are those ones who feel that the report is as good, that it can, as it is, be subjected to a referendum and then be actualized into law. And there are those ones who are saying that there are many other things or a few things that needs to be improved on before it is subjected to a referendum. So the Senate Majority Leader will try to help us understand even the paths that this document should take before it is eventually actualized.
First of all, I've had the opportunity to look at the document, and we had a pre-launch meeting, and then on the 26th of October we had a big launch at Bomas of Kenya. So it's officially launched and it's in the hands of the public. It's in the hands of the citizenry. Hopefully, people are reading it themselves, not through the eyes of another person, particularly politicians. If you allow our eyes to be the ones to guide you, we'll give you how we see it. But read it. The document is written in goodwill, and I think that's where I want to begin. That this document is written in goodwill. The goodwill is the goodwill of the handshake between our president and the former prime minister, and so anything that came out of that would only have the basic ideas that were espoused during the handshake. And one of the things was about the shared prosperity, it's about unity of the country, it's about no community left behind, it's about fighting corruption, it's about reorganizing our governance structure, and all those things were meant to be good. And so what you realize is that all those good things are in this document. But I can pick, as I said during the launch, I can pick any line and run with it and say this is the bad one. But while you run with the bad one, you're not giving the good ones what the chance they deserve. And so politics being what it is, you'll find that somebody will run away with one, say this is wrong, this is not there. But let's focus on what is there. And you spoke about the roadmap, for example, which is the thing that we need for members of the public to understand the roadmap for it. So after the official launch, the next thing is now, which is of course work in progress, is the formation of the establishment of the coordination team, or the secretariat for that matter, referendum committee. And then, let us say, for example, after that, we should have what was supposed to be done today, which is the launching of the collection of signatures, which is of course called the public outreach. Public outreach and signature collection. That should be able to begin then the process of a referendum. And the signatures will then be, and the bill, the bill will then be presented to, submitted to IEBC. IEBC then will verify the signatures. IEBC submits the bill to county assemblies, and then from there now the county assemblies will do debate and vote, if we get, I think 50 plus 1. County assemblies approve the bill, then of course, after the county assemblies have approved the bill, it will then come to the parliament. Now the parliament, both houses of parliament will then approve it. But by the way, IEBC's role is now to organize the referendum. Whether all this, whether National Assembly and Senate finish what they were saying, it is once the signatures have been approved, the people have decided that they want a referendum. And it is that referendum now that will be the task of IEBC. And the rest of the things then, hopefully, a referendum will be approved within the legal timelines, and then once the amendments and everything has been approved, the president assents to it, then we have a constitutional change. Yeah.
So when you speak of the county parliaments, also having a look at it and debating it and passing it before now it is brought to the National Assembly, and the Senate. Now, how many? Because we have 47 counties, how many counties are supposed to pass it before it can be said that a majority of Kenyans support this document and therefore we can now take it to Parliament?
With 47 counties, the number of 24 would be right, would be like the midway, isn't it? 50%
yes.
plus 1.
Yes.
So I think that's what the number is so 24. That's usually the way it has worked before. I don't think the threshold was lifted any higher than that. Yeah, for purposes of passing.
You've outlined there, in a nutshell. Actually, now people understand the path that this document is supposed to take before it is made into law. Now, let's look at some of the sticking issues. Of course, you say that different people will read it differently, and you also urge Kenyans to read, those ones who can read, to read it themselves and not to listen to somebody else telling them that this is what I've read and this is what I think, and I also think that you should support my position. Let those ones who can read
for themselves.
Read the document for themselves. Now, quite a few things there. Let's begin from your own backyard. I think there are still some tussle between the role of the National Assembly and the Senate, the way this BBI document has projected the post-BBI Kenya.
Yes. By the way, the 2010 Constitution created the Senate. For example, we were a unicameral legislative system in Kenya until the 2010 Constitution created the bicameral. And we are therefore there. But I'm not so sure that when we decided it was going to be bicameral, we didn't decide what kind of Senate, for example, we wanted. And so what was done then, as you remember the story, is that people then went and watered down the proposals to make a Senate the upper house. And they watered down almost everything about the Senate. And not because it's just because the whole idea of a devolved system of government and the role of the Senate was then limited to about issues of counties, and became the champion of devolution or the protector of devolution. And so I just want to speak about that something about that needs to be righted now. This is a time to correct that. And Kenyans have to ask, if we really want to have a bicameral house, then we must then provide responsibilities that go with our desire to have a devolved system of government. And since the Senate now has been given, and I speak for the Senate mostly because the provisions for the National Assembly are very clear and very strong and very strongly worded, because in this, the center of legislation should be in both houses. But the National Assembly will have a different system from the proposed for the Senate. Now, partly because the Senate still focuses on devolution, on devolved units. The National Assembly focuses on national issues. And so, while you'll have a Prime Minister and deputies in the National Assembly, you will not have that in the Senate. then you'll have the leader of official opposition in the National Assembly. You will not have that in the Senate. You'll have to have a different nomenclature for the Senate. For example, the Senate might retain, and I think that's the leader majority and leader minority, okay, for the leadership of the Senate.
Yes.
But the other place you'll have the leader of government business and the leader of official opposition. And the whole idea, and I think that's why I find it very difficult when people want to tear this document down. I mean, to try and discredit this document, is that first of all, where we are, all you can do, the BBI can do, is increase our opportunities. BBI is not taking away from what we had. So anything that adds to what you have is better than where you are. And so when we think about it, if you do away with BBI right now, and you stay where you are, we don't have the opportunity of increasing, for example, the stability during and after every election, which has been that the loser of an election who runner up in the election, just walks away and becomes a nuisance somewhere outside there, begins to create problems for the country, and the country is again torn. But if you want to cure that, the provisions are very clear. The person who has garnered 6 million votes or 4 million votes is not a small person. That to be just left alone, to go home like that, you know. So this is the idea of curing that problem which was there before. And then that person then becomes, as was even before, the leader of official opposition, complete with provisions of leadership and office, and the perks that go with an office, and becomes a ex-official member of parliament, becomes a member of parliament, which means he's operating from within the same sanctuary, the same place as the prime minister. So I'm just saying, when you look at all that, it is good for the country. And as I said before, BBI was drafted in goodwill from the very beginning. And so I would really ask Kenyans to look at what is positive about BBI. 35% of revenue going to the counties, the devolved units. It's closer to 50%. Way up from where we were at 15%. And this is a minimum. It doesn't say this is a maximum. This is a minimum. And so even if you are disadvantaged, and I know there are issues, people talk about the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. So even if you are so disadvantaged, with a bigger pool of money, your disadvantage is still better. Somehow better.
Dealt with, yeah.
Yeah. Because your allocation will be much higher. You might be at the bottom of the park, but your bottom of the park, being that position, is still a much better position because of the increased revenues that have come, allocations that have come.